What are your thoughts on your children, calling your significant other dad? I think you're gonna have to lead with this one, because yeah.
What's up, my loves? It's your girl CiCi Moya. Welcome back to my channel. So I have a special guest, my homegirl Anjali from Toronto, and we're gonna dive into some pretty touchy subjects. Not touchy, but very intimate and kind of personal, because we're both single mothers, as you can tell by the title. And yeah, we're gonna be raw, we're gonna be authentic,
For real.
we're gonna keep it real.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready? Let's get to this.
Okay, so let me get into the first question. First question I have here: number one criteria for a man planning on dating you as a single mother.
And we're gonna be doing our makeup too. Number one criteria, well, I mean, you gotta love kids. You gotta love kids.
Yes, that's
That I think essentially that would be the number one criteria. But I feel like that's a given. Like if you're not, I don't think I would be expecting it, because I think that would just have to be.
Yeah.
But what would I expect from you is to know that you entering a relationship with me means automatically that we're a full package, and that you have to specifically be able to get along with Ruby. Like, she's gotta like you.
Yeah, that's super important. Yeah, that's important.
What would you say?
To be honest with you, my criteria is that if my son, I have a 7-year-old son, Grayson. Is that if my son grew up to be just like you, that I'd be proud. I felt like I did a good job as a mother. That's
Are
super
you a good
important
role
to me.
model?
Because in all honesty, my kid might not like you to begin with, and that's valid. Because it's strange, it's new territory. Nobody's ready to be a parent. So it's not even like, oh yeah, like I'm ready to be a father. Like, you can say you're ready, but are you really ready? Like, there's certain things that you have to go through.
Yeah.
You don't know until you're in it. But it's just, do you embody and emulate the qualities that I would want my son to also possess? Because you're going to be one of the biggest contributions in his manhood.
One of them.
As an example.
Yeah.
So like, as a man, and like, I don't have a lot of male role models in my son's life. So like, if you're the one that I'm choosing, am I gonna be proud of that decision?
Yeah.
That to me, I think would be like my number one
Love
criteria.
Love that.
So then what I'm gonna ask next is, how soon are we introducing our kids to the new boo?
So that's a tough one. And I've had a couple of these conversations with other moms.
Mm-hmm.
Some were single, some were married. And, you know, and I think that matters. And, you know, why I mention that is because when you're married already and you have this kind of conversation with a single girl, I don't want to say that you forget necessarily what it's like to be a single mom. But at the same time, I don't know, I feel like there is some kind of a bias, and it could be, what's the word? Unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
It could be unconscious bias, but I feel when you're another single mom, you might relate even more to me when I say that for me, I prefer, I wouldn't say as soon as possible, but still kind of in the early stages, because it's part of the way that I evaluate you.
Your decision process on whether or not
It's part of my decision process. Yeah. Because if she doesn't click with you, and I agree in terms of like, you know, the child might not like you or love you right away, but at least, I don't know, I think I'm very intuitive. So when I see your energy around my child, I get a good sense of who you are.
That's true.
Like almost right away, because I observe you, and I observe the way that you interact with a vulnerable human being, aka my child, and I can read a lot into it.
That's true. I see what you mean.
So I wouldn't put a number of days or weeks or months, but I think I would feel it when it's time for me to get to that stage to evaluate you in that circumstance.
I just feel like I can't decide that you're the one for me if I haven't seen whether or not you're the one for my kid. Like, how can you be the one for me and then not be the one for an extension of myself?
Because it's not just me.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely believe in that. But I think I take it one step further even. It's how I'm introducing you.
Okay.
When I first introduce you, this is not an intimate, this is mommy's boyfriend. This is like, there's going to be some security there, whether it's going to be like whether I have like my sisters over or I have other friends over or it's a get together and I see how you take initiative to get to know my child, how you interact. But it's never going to be on a one-on-one basis because I think that's also unfair to put a child into that predicament.
Yes.
And not even just that. Okay, so that person wasn't the one. Does that mean that you introduce the next guy and then the next guy one-on-one? That's a very different example.
That's the fear. That's the fear behind it. Is that to what point do you say, okay, you know what? I've introduced too many men to my child, or not even many men, because I'm very selective, but I'm also okay with having male friends. So that said, whether you're being introduced as an uncle, because that's how I raise Ruby, is that there's uncles and there's aunties. You know, so if you're being introduced as an uncle, before I get to the part, before I give you a title, you're just an uncle.
I see what you mean. So for me, my son is a little bit older, so I can't pull that uncle crap because it'll get weird. Because my son will be like, but I thought he was family. So I don't do that because my son's at an age where like he can wrap his head.
Or friend. I say mommy's friend too.
Yeah. So for me, it would be more of like a friend. But again, like for me, I just don't do the one-on-one. I don't do the one-on-one introductions. Just because I want my son to also feel secure with the interaction. Like I want to give him space to decide whether or not, because I feel like, you know, culturally, I'm Jamaican. We're always taught to respect our elders. If they want to hug you or kiss you, whatever, to allow them. I want my son to be confident enough to be able to say like, no, I want my space. Like for me, I'm okay with that.
So Ruby's in the other room watching a movie, and if you happen to hear a big laugh, singing vocal notes, that's what it is when you have a child that you have to preoccupy so you can do your thing.
I think we need more than 4 questions.
That one wasn't easy. That one was a short one.
But like the next one, okay.
I see one of the
last one.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while to answer.
Okay,
so.
We'll see. Now you're in a relationship.
Okay, now you're in a
so now you're in a relationship with this person. Your children are involved and everything. How long?
Your children are involved. Oh, with the person.
Like with the person.
I thought you meant like I thought you mean like they have kids. We don't know that. If they do, that's another element though.
That's true.
If they have, okay, so that would be like a sub question. If they have children, how soon
do the kids meet? I feel like that's a really great way to meet though, because then you can see how the kids intermingle with one another to see if that dynamic is good. I'm not saying off the bat. Well, first I think it's important that you meet their children and their children and your children meet them.
After?
Like before.
Like you meet their children without yours.
Yeah, I should be a familiar face to your children
before they meet.
Not like intimately, but like we should have met before I just come in with my kids. What do you mean? You're telling me that a man comes in with a bunch of children and you're saying, "Hey, Ruby, this is my boyfriend and kids."
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like we should know. Like,
yeah. So you meet the children separately. He meets Ruby separately, and then eventually you get the kids together.
Yeah, like see how they respond to that. Because what's the point of exposing them to children? If your kid doesn't like the man and you didn't like the way the man interacted with your child, there's no reason for the kids to meet.
Right.
At all.
So now how many times, because that I know someone would ask the question, how many times would you allow yourself to go through that cycle? Where they meet someone and you see how they interact, and let's say you say, no, he's not good for me, or he's not good for us.
Okay, but see, remember, for me, I'm not as concerned about that because it's never a one-on-one situation.
Okay.
So I think
that's good advice. So you're saying when you meet someone, when you want someone to meet your child, you only do it in a
group setting,
communal setting.
Like it's either my sister and we have some friends over or something like that, but it's never just gonna be me and my son in the beginning, because ultimately I don't want to put my son in that situation, and I also want to see organically, because a man is always going to be on his best behavior when he knows that you're watching him. But like if we're in say I have a barbecue and I invite a bunch of people over and a bunch of people are interacting with my kid, did you even take the initiative to get to know my son, to talk to him, to say, hey, what's up, whatever?
Okay.
You might be uncomfortable the first time, but the second, third time, you're still not talking to my kid? That's weird to me.
Right.
So I feel like group settings, it's just a way for you to not overexpose your child to somebody prematurely.
I like that.
But at the same time, you get to see how they interact. And it's also, you have to understand accountability, right? Like, you have a community of friends that are there, they love you, and they want what's best for you and your child.
Mm-hmm.
Introducing your child to them, and they get to watch how he interacts. It's not just you looking through like rose-colored glasses.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna be able to be like, you know, I noticed it was kind of weird. He was really dismissive towards your kid,
right,
or whatever. And so it's overall just protecting everybody.
Right.
It's like a hedge of protection. And then he also doesn't have to worry about the pressure of, oh my God, I'm meeting kids for the first time. Because that can be nerve-wracking for the man as well.
True.
So
That's
giving
pressure,
that buffer, it's just overall like just a hedge of protection for everybody when you utilize your community as the platform in which you're introducing your children. That's just my opinion. So for me, like, I have been in a situation where I've invited a man over and to be around my kid to see if there was a future, and I realized that there wasn't. And guess what? He just never came over again.
Right. Yeah.
Next get together, he wasn't there. And no harm, no foul. You know, my son didn't even remember the gentleman's name.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's fine. But at least I know that like there's no intimacy there on that level where, you know, now my son feels like I'm taking somebody out of his life or that he's met too many people. You know, my son doesn't even realize the significance that that person might have held.
Right, exactly. And I think
that's what prevents that constant cycle of like constantly introducing people. Also, like, if you've introduced more than like 3 people, like, I think you also need to evaluate like the way you're assessing your significant others. Like, why is every man the man? Like, why is he the one? Like, I don't feel everybody should earn that access to your child. So I think at that point you have to start evaluating how you are figuring out whether or not this person is somebody that you want around your child.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like next I think would be just like now that you guys are involved, you're in a relationship.
But at the same time, man, like, sorry, I gotta go back to that.
It's okay.
Because like, I'll get to know someone for 5, 6, 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you last this amount of months with somebody.
This foundation.
You would want to think.
Sorry to interrupt you.
You would like to think. Yeah, it doesn't feel on camera, but it doesn't look fair in person.
That's okay. Flashback.
You would want to think that, you know, there's definitely a future there.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you never, and people get married and you still don't know that person. Like, come on now.
And I completely agree with you. Most certainly. Most certainly. But I just feel like at the end of the day, that's why you have discernment, and that's again why you have community. I just feel like when we go at it alone,
I like the idea of the community.
When we go at it alone, we are susceptible to our own judgment and our own misjudgment. We're single moms for a reason. There was a lapse in judgment somewhere. There was somewhere where I was just like, oh, you know, this was one thing. You know? That's crazy. There was a lapse of judgment somewhere. So sometimes, you know, we don't even realize the patterns that we are creating for ourselves.
And that's being real.
And not even just that. Sometimes our strength is our weakness. Because we survived, we don't look at the patterns of which we survived, not realizing like, I don't want to survive, I want to live.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's just like, okay, yeah, I went through a bad relationship and I ended up being okay after all.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I'm not moving. Hold on. Let me catch up to you real quick. Primer. Bibi, qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a, chérie? Je fais mon maquillage. On fait une vidéo, on travaille.
But yeah, I feel like sometimes, you know, we end up getting into these relationships with people and we don't realize that we're repeating our same cycle. But we've got girlfriends, people that we trust and love us, like mothers, sisters, whatever our relationship, our community, our circle, our tribe looks like, that are going to be able to recognize those things for us. And then we're going to be able to say, hey, like, you know, I get that that's your type, but have you not realized that your type has been the wrong type for you for the last 10 years? Maybe you need to branch out. But yeah, so like now you're in a relationship with this person. You guys are together. How long should you wait before you expect that relationship to progress? Because I mean, when it's just you, if it takes 5 years to get the ring, you have 5 years to spare. Does the same rules apply when you've got a child involved?
I would say yes, because I don't want the fact that I'm a mom to influence how quickly I want to settle with somebody. Because subconsciously I've done it in the past. Yeah, we're both parents, and I guess that's the next step to have like, you know, this stable family feel, right? But after that situation, I was like, oh, hell no. It'll take how long it takes. No, I'm not going to rush for that family vibe. I definitely want to really get to know you and see everything that needs to be seen. Vice versa, I want you to see me in all my vices and know that, you know,
this is
we'll stick it through no matter what. Yeah. Before I say yes to a lifetime. And that doesn't matter whether I'm a mom or not.
That's valid. I value my time so much. So like for me, like I've never given a man more than 3 years of my life. Yeah, my first real dating experience, I mean, after 11 months, we were engaged. And, you know, we were progressing to be married. So by the end of the 3 years, we would have been married. That was not necessarily the necessary timeline for me in that perspective, but it was just, I knew that I didn't want to give you more than that, and we're both in a place of being in the limbo of being uncertain of what we want in a relationship.
Yeah. You were young too.
Oh, for sure. I had just turned 21 when we got engaged, I think. He was 22. But like, you could tell me nothing. Like, I knew I loved that man. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with that man. Like, I knew that. I loved his family and everything. And I mean, it was God that we are not together now. Not because it was a negative relationship in the sense that we were toxic to one another or anything. It's just God had other things for us, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, for me, 3 years, I can't give more than that to somebody. With my son, I feel like it's very different. I don't know if it's different for you as a mother to, you know, a daughter, but to me, like, I have to think of the example that I'm putting forth. Like, my son's father.
And that's why I wouldn't rush.
Yes and no, but like my son's father also, like, he has a child from a previous relationship. He's dating a girl who has 2 kids. And they have previous, oh, that's fine. He's dating a girl that has 2 kids as well. And it's like, you know, there are a lot of evidences and examples of men being in non-committed commitments. Like, you know, nobody's saying I do here. Nobody's married. Like,
right.
And to me, you know, to each their own, but this is me giving my opinion, and I said I was going to keep it raw. Like, to me, that's not a man. You got a whole bunch of kids involved, and like there's no sense of like finality. There's no, I'm going to give you my all. I am going to do right by you, by your kid, like our kids. Like, to me, I don't want to raise a son that doesn't share that sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know, I don't see it that way. To me, a man, we're talking about progression in a relationship. For a man to ask me to marry him, maybe I don't know, is it a control issue? But to me, I'm just like, it wouldn't take for him to ask me to marry me for me to feel as though he's doing good by me. Like,
and I agree, but I just mean as in like his father has yet to commit to somebody.
No, I get that.
And there's no examples of that. My parents are divorced.
But I would definitely have like a huge role. You know, I would play a huge role in deciding whether or not we're even ready to get engaged. Oh, I'm sorry, future hubby, but that's just facts. Like, if I don't know that we're really at a point where we're certain that we want to commit to each other, I don't want you to ask me to marry me.
And I agree with that. That's fine.
And you doing it doesn't make you look better just because you surprised me.
And I agree.
Like, we would have had to have conversation beforehand, because like you said, how long before you progress? In that sense,
progression may not be engagement, because progression could just be like, oh, we have common goals, we want to save, we want to be debt free, how are we holding ourselves accountable? Maybe it's we want to save for vacation, we get a joint account for saving for our vacation. Like, you just have to see some progression. But for me, like, I am so choosy about my time. Oh, let me grab this.
But at the same time, you want to know that I would want to be definitely involved in the decision that we're ready to progress to that level.
And I agree with wanting to be a part of that conversation.
Because you committing to me, I want to be as committed to you and willing to be committed to you at that level. Like, to me, it's like, it's both. It's both sides. You committing to me is not, you're not doing me a favor. How I see it.
I agree. It's a privilege. Most certainly. And it's not to take away from any of that. I agree with all of that. But I'm saying, bro, we've been together 3 years and you don't know if you want to make me your wife? No. To me, it's like...
But I wouldn't be waiting. That's what I'm saying. I think I wouldn't be like, is he gonna ask? Is he gonna ask? I would be asking. I'd say, babe, are we doing this?
Oh, for sure. But it's always
and if you say yes, then I'll wait for the day you pop the question.
And I agree with that. And that's what it is. It's just, for me, it's just, I value my time, and I can't get that back. That is one commodity, one currency you cannot get returned. Somebody can waste 5 years of your life, and you're not gonna get those 5 years back.
Nobody would have 5 years to waste.
So, and
Adam, for period, you would never find 5 years
in a relationship
of my life to waste. Like,
and I agree with that, but I'm just saying for myself, personally, there's absolutely nobody that I've loved long enough to wait. Like, I don't care. Oh, you're building, that's your excuse. Let's build together. Like, whatever it is, for me, I have a son, and I don't want a son wasting no woman's time. I don't want my son to be in no 6-year relationship, 3 babies in tow. That's not
find me.
So for me, there's a sense of urgency in the sense of like, how much do you value us to be able to make this a family unit? There's no rush to it. There's no whatever. It just comes down to.
So you're saying when you're ready as a woman to take it to the next level, when you're like, I know in my heart
it has
that
to be mutual. No matter what, it has to be mutual. No man is gonna be like, oh, I'm not.
Because it doesn't just end the day he proposes and you get married.
No, we're not dealing with no caveman. We're not dealing with no caveman. No hit me over the head like you chose me as your wife and I'm just going along with it. No. That's not it. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that for me, if after a year of us getting to know each other, like you don't see something, 6 months, truthfully, like I'm in my 30s now. If 6 months you don't see the potential of me being your wife, or I don't see the potential of you being my husband, it's done.
Thank you. I want you to mention that second part. Like if I don't see that you're a potential husband, that's also not good enough. Because I don't want to just wait around and find out whether or not you think I'm worthy. And I gotta wait for you to pop the question just because.
Oh, it's definitely.
It depends on you.
It's definitely twofold. I guess for me more, it's just maybe just a given, so I didn't articulate it because at the end of the day, like this, it's my life.
But the thing is,
my child.
Why I say that's because I think too many women do that. They'll do the 5-6 year wait because they're like, well, he hasn't asked. I'm like, have you asked? Like,
what do you want, girl?
Him. Well, I want him to feel ready. How about you? Are you ready? What about you? What do you want?
What do you want?
If you want to move forward and he doesn't, or he's still trying to make up his mind, you can own your power and say, babe, I don't want to stick around forever waiting for you to make up your mind. Yeah, because I want this. Yeah. Because I want this. That's the premise. I want this. Do you also want this? I'm not sure. Well, hit me up when you are ready, and if I'm still available, we'll talk.
Yeah, no, and that's.
But why wait 5, 6, 7 years? Oh, he hasn't put a ring on it. I don't know when he's waiting. What you mean you don't know? Have you? Open your mouth, ladies. No. You're strong. You can do it, and you're allowed. You're worthy.
Oh yeah.
To take the situation in your hands and say, this is what I want. Do you agree? If not, that's okay. We'll be cool.
Yeah, I have.
We'll be cool.
I have no problem walking away from the situation if I don't feel like it's going anywhere. For sure. Like, I'll be honest, and like, again, we're keeping it raw. Like, my son's father was a product of me breaking up with my ex-fiance. He was a rebound. I feel no way in saying that because as women, I feel like we do that.
Yeah.
And guess what? Don't do it. You will get pregnant and you will die.
Well, not die. You might not die, but
Mean Girls.
Oh,
he says you will get pregnant and you will die. That's why I said it. And if you guys are Mean Girls fans, you understood the reference. So
yeah, it took me.
That's what it was. But no, for me, I just took for granted. Like, I was just like, oh, have fun. And then I had too much fun once and ended up with my kid.
Too much fun once.
And I was grateful. Like, at the end of the day, my son is the best thing that ever happened to me. But in all reality, what it came down to was just like, I knew that was not a relationship that I wanted. And I did not feel bad about that. I said, I'm going to give him 2 years so that my son and him have a relationship, and then I'm out. And I'm going to tell you right now, my son was born in 2013. In February, October 2014, I was out. Before my son's second birthday. I was like, no, because I didn't want him to remember the dysfunction. I didn't want him to remember being in a situation where his mother and father were not in a healthy relationship with one another, and I didn't want to make that normal, so I opted to just not allow that to be the case because I knew I didn't want the longevity out of that relationship.
Okay, so it comes down to,
are you adding value to my life in the time that we are spending with one another?
That's right. And vice versa.
And am I adding value to you? And as we progress, is this going in a positive direction that is adding to everyone involved?
Yeah.
Because that's also my kids too. Like, what do you bring to the
right.
table for my children?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's...
Yeah, so for anybody out there who's not a single parent and you're just dating as just a young girl, we just want to show you the added element to, you know, dating as single women, which is definitely your children, but also just everything around it. It's more complex than just being a mom and now you have to date. It's like, no, there's this to consider, this to consider, and that too. So it's not impossible, but it's something to keep in mind because I know some women just want to have kids and they don't care to, you know, be with anybody. Sometimes they'll just go to a clinic and have a child, or sometimes they'll have an arrangement. I know some women who had arrangements with someone and said, you know, give me a child. You don't have to worry about anything. I just want to be a mom because, you know, clock, whatever, right? So you just got to think about that too, because eventually nobody really wants to be alone. So if you want to have a child and you know you're going to be single, know ahead of time that this is everything you'll have to be doing too.
Yeah. And, you know, it's a lot of work. It's not easy. It's not easy.
No.
And it's not for everybody. Like, it's not something that everybody can make it on the other side and have the best outcome. I think it's very hard to, like, anticipate what you're gonna go through, but I never thought this would be it.
And I mean, you know, some moms also have to deal with a child that's sick or that has a learning disability, and these things are other added elements too. How do you date with that, you know, with those kind of circumstances?
For sure. This is the loaded question, I think. Yeah, this is it. So, what are your thoughts on your children, calling your significant other dad? I think you're gonna have to lead with this one, because, yeah.
I think my nose is highlighted now. Wow, this is a tough one. Do you want to start?
I don't know. I think I have to gather my thoughts around this because it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Especially when you have a father that is involved. Right? And even if he wasn't, like, it's just, I don't know, man. It's like, because when I see it, it's weird. I grew up in a family where my mom remarried and we called him dad almost from the get-go. Like, the minute they were married, my mom was like, that's your dad. That's dad. Call him papi in French. Would I impose that on Ruby? I doubt it.
Yeah.
I sincerely doubt it. I don't think I would ever feel comfortable even hearing her call another man dad. But I say that to a point. Like, if I love this man, when I love my future man, husband, like you were saying earlier, you want to choose someone who is going to be a great role model, someone who makes you feel safe. And when you're together, even with your child, you just feel like that's my family. That's my family. So I would think, would I let it happen naturally? Like, if she wants to, do I give her the option? Do I tell her, do you want to call him dad? Because you have a dad, you know, daddy's here, but you can have daddy number 2 if you want. Do I have that conversation with my child? I think that's probably how I would approach it. But I don't think it would be from jump. Like, she's 4. So I don't think I would confuse her so early. Now that her father is involved, you know, I wouldn't want to confuse her in telling her, well, call him dad too. I would never impose it. That, I know, like, I'm traumatized by that, so I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't pass that on. But at the same time, would he expect, would he want that? Would that make him feel important or valued?
I feel like that's part of the conversation also that you should be having before you decide this person is the one, is like, what is the role that you want to play in my child's life?
What would you expect the role to be like, though?
I would want him to be a father figure just simply because of the dynamic between my child's father.
Okay.
You know, not to put him down or anything. We just have very different values.
Right.
And ultimately, I have an understanding of how I want to raise my son, and because the values don't match, I would want a male to be in a role and a position where he could really facilitate that perspective that I share, but from a male perspective. So it's not so much the void or the deficit. It just comes down to I have
supporting your
certain like ultimately, I really do believe that a male role is important, and although I have my own opinions and I'm strong and I'm capable, the truth is I can't teach a man how to be a man.
Thank you.
I can't.
And that's why I'm so glad I have a girl.
I cannot.
But she still needs her dad. Period. And I encourage, if you're a single mother out there, encourage your child, whether it's a girl or a boy, to have a relationship with their father. I am big on that. No matter what your situation is with daddy.
You don't have to like them. But
you don't have to like them.
The kid to both of you. So it is what it is.
And it's going to be a biological need for them to have a relationship with that person. Like, half of their DNA is from this other person. So encourage that relationship. It's not for you. It's for them.
Yeah.
Like, even on my phone, like the day, I don't know if I can tell you this, the day that things really changed for me with my relationship with Ruby's dad is when I physically changed his name on my phone to Ruby's dad. Period. I don't call him by his first name. When I see him, well, when we talk, I may call him by his first name. But when it rings on my phone psychologically, I'm reminded
of who that person is.
That this person is, it's strictly for her.
Yeah. And that's important.
It's not about me. It's not about
what we've been through. That actually might be, that's a good way of looking at it.
Right? It's not about what we went through, what we failed at, what he did to me, or vice versa. It's Ruby's dad.
Yeah, and that's super important. That's super important. For me, I'm just not big on imposing anything on my son. Like, I'm very big. Like, even when I was talking about earlier about like when you introduce people, like, I like my son being able to say, like, I'm uncomfortable with hugging you. I don't want to kiss you. I don't want to normalize adults forcing themselves and them feeling obligated. I'm sorry, we're in a different day and age now.
Thank you.
That's why there was a lot of things that happened that shouldn't have happened to children, and nobody knows about it. And nobody says anything. So I'm not going to normalize adults imposing themselves on my child. So ultimately, you can be a father figure and not be a father. We always have people that I'm sure we all have, like, the friend's mom that we said, like, that's my second mom. Or we have, like, the aunt that, like, is the cool aunt that we spend time with.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like, a role is not going to be determined by a label, per se.
Yeah.
But I feel like if my son said to me, Mom, like, I want to call him Dad.
Yeah.
By all means.
Yeah.
But I'm going to let you decide what you're comfortable with as a child. And then we're going to take it from there. Like, you may never be Dad. But, when those times count, you were the father that they needed. And that's okay with me.
And how soon?
Pardon me?
How soon?
My son wants to call him Dad the day I get married, or like we're engaged and he knows it's gonna happen. Like, ultimately, I'm gonna let my kid decide.
But that's still part of the answer, though.
Yeah, like
engaged or married. So like, not while you're dating.
Ultimately, no. Even engagement, I think, is a little bit premature because I didn't make it down the aisle.
I didn't make it down the aisle either.
So I think that's the thing. But I just feel like now I have the discernment that I wouldn't put myself in a situation.
I think so too. I want to believe that I've learned my lessons and that I won't repeat them.
I have faith in myself. That I'm not gonna. I've been single for 6 years. I got patience. I got patience. But that's another conversation for another day as to like the whys behind that, for sure. But for me, I just strongly believe that it's really up for them to determine what their relation's going to be. Because you cannot stand in the gap. Not just the child, but the child and your significant other.
And the person.
Because ultimately, you cannot, the same way I can't make my child's biological father be a better father. I can't be the relationship for him. So why then would I impose myself into their relationship? They're going to have their own relationship, and I cannot force that. Because there are fathers who are living under the same roof and are not being dads. They're not present. So I'm also not going to just like force that on my kid. Like ultimately it's going to come down to what he decides for himself and the initiative in the relationship. Because he could be a fantastic stepdad. My son may never be comfortable because he might be like, I have my own dad. And that's okay too.
Right.
But whenever he does call him, it has to be something that my spouse is comfortable with.
Yeah.
and that is still respectful.
Yeah,
So I'm not saying don't call me no uncle.
Demand respect from
Most
your child. Because it's an
definitely.
adult no matter what, and you're raising your child to respect adults.
Exactly.
But
So
forcing
like,
them to be close.
if he doesn't want to be called by his first name, like you're not calling him by his first name. If that makes him uncomfortable, he feels that's not respectful or honoring to
then
him.
what would it be, like Mr. something?
No, it just depends on what he wants. Like, for instance, like, this is a little bit different, but like my father, when he divorced my mother and he remarried younger.
Right.
And my son is part of that equation because he's the grandchild. And she wanted to be called grandmother. And he was like, you're almost the same age as my mom. That's weird. I'm not comfortable calling you that. And I honored that and saying, you know what? If you're not comfortable calling her grandma, you don't have to call her grandma. But whatever you call her has to be respectful. So we decided on Miss Dion. So she's Miss Dion.
Oh, okay. Miss.
She's Miss Dion as the step grandmother or whatever she is.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the role that she plays. So whatever it is, it has to be respectful.
Kinda
It
like
has to be
teachers,
honoring. You know what I mean? Because if you're gonna call them by their first name, as long as it's not to dismiss who he is in your life or in your household, I think that's okay. But if it's Frank,
I'm
then
not
you
down
know,
with the first names.
you need to beat the kid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We don't beat children. What are you talking about?
I was keeping it real. You might want to cut that out.
In conclusion, what's the biggest takeaway, would you say?
Know what you want. Know what you bring to the table. And set your expectations from the beginning so that there are no surprises later on. And that has to be decided for yourself so that when you're taking that into a relationship that you can get what you want from that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't know what role you want to play, I can't get upset if you don't know what role you want to play. If I don't know when I want to introduce you, I can't expect you to know when you want to meet my kid. Mm-hmm. So I think I just have to generally have an understanding of what it is that I want. And then that way, when I'm proceeding to like get to know somebody, I can take that into that relationship and everything will follow suit. How about yourself?
I agree. I would say the number one takeaway is there are different ways to do things. I don't think there's just the one size fits all advice for single moms or even women in general. Because I think your situation calls for your own perspective, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to say, you know, I don't always have it together. Like, it's okay to say I failed before, I've introduced somebody too soon, or I've entered the wrong relationships because I was emotional, or whatever it is. Owning that vulnerability is a good thing. I don't think it's something to be ashamed of or feel too guilty about. You get over that, and then after that you look back. And I love you had a video that you did on Instagram, and I really, it touched, you know, it struck a chord for me because you'll go through a situation, even as a mother, especially as a single parent. Everybody wants to give you advice left and right. So you do your best, but when you fail along the way, you're like, what the hell? I'm not doing this right, or I'm not, you know, I'm not progressing. What you said in your video is that instead of focusing on how challenging your situations are, look back and say, I did that before and that worked. I overcame the situation. I'm strong. I can do it all over again. So you will not get everything right along the motherhood journey, but look back at some of the things you overcame. Just the fact that you're a single parent, you're already a superhero.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Period.
For sure.
You already did something that most people probably wouldn't be able to survive. So give yourself that pat on the back.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was a pleasure. And you will definitely be back.
Oh, most definitely. And this is the beat for today. Simple, natural.
Yeah, very simple. I think that's like the mother look for me because I'm like, not too much. Look
except for
proper. Look like you tried.
Yeah.
But you look stunning. She's a makeup artist as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, yeah, single motherhood is not a failure.
No.
And there's so much more in store for you.
Most definitely.
That's it. All right, you guys. Well, stand tall in life and in love. And I'll see you on my next video.